She had found out 2 weeks ago. That was the day her world began to crumble. The moment was burned into her memory like a scar that would never fade. She had walked down the familiar halls of her parents' house, the home where she had always been a ghost. She wasn't expecting much, maybe another cold conversation, another reminder that she was the adopted daughter, the one who never truly belonged. But nothing could have prepared her for what she saw when she reached Monique's bedroom door. It was ajar, and the sounds coming from inside made her stomach lurch. Moans. Groans. The unmistakable sounds of pleasure. A sickening chill spread through her veins as she stepped forward. Her heartbeat pounding in her ears, and there they were, Monique, her younger sister, straddling her husband, riding him with reckless abandon. Then Monique laughed a wicked, satisfied sound that sliced through her like a blade. When she reached the living room, her parents were there, sitting comfortably, as if nothing in the world was amiss. "Mom, Dad," her voice shook as she turned to them, her chest heaving. "Do you know about this?" Karen and Miguel exchanged a glance before her mother sighed, barely sparing her a look of concern. "Your sister is stubborn," she said dismissively. "She's been into Rick for a while. Let her enjoy her madness. She'll tire of him soon." She was the outsider, the child they adopted out of obligation, before Monique was born. They had never expected to have their own child, but when Monique arrived, everything changed. Monique wanted. Monique got. It had always been that way. Then Charles had come into her life, her college sweetheart. The man who had once made her feel like she was worth something. Charlie Jr. had been her world, her reason for sacrificing everything. She had thought she was building something meaningful. She had thought she had a happy life. Then Monique reappeared. Like a storm, her younger sister had swept into their lives, sinking her claws into everything that wasn't hers. And now she had taken everything. That night, when Charles came home late, their son was already asleep. "Why, Monique?" she asked, her voice quiet but sharp. Charles stiffened. "You and your baseless accusations," he said defensively. "I saw you in her room today," she said, her words slicing through the air like a blade. He froze her. "Let's divorce," she said, her voice steady, resolute, his expression twisted in fury. "You unfeeling bitch. My son will stay with me. You can't take him, you don't have the money to support him. He's 5 years old. He'll stay with me. You can visit him while you enjoy Monique." There's nothing more to say. Alice's plan crumbled before her eyes. Charles had dragged her to court for custody of their son, and with his influence as a respected lawyer, the judge ruled in his favor. After the hearing, she rushed to Charles, tears streaming down her face. "Please, Charles," she begged. "You know Monique won't take care of him. She can't. Give my son to me. He needs his mother." Charles tilted his head, a smirk curling his lips. "You're so stubborn, Alice. Always thinking you can win against me. Our son?" He let out a sharp, mocking laugh. "The court says he's my son now. You lost. Face it." Beside him, Monique crossed her arms and smirked. "Oh, don't look so pitiful, dear sister. Charles Jr. will be just fine without you." Alice turned desperately to her parents. "Mom, Dad, please. You know this is wrong. He belongs with me." Karen and Miguel barely met her gaze. "Monique is better suited to care for him. You should just accept this and move on. You never loved me, did you?" she whispered. "I was just someone you could control, love." He scoffed. "I tolerated you, but you were always too ambitious, too independent. I needed a wife who knew her place. Yes, Monique understands that better than you. Just 3 weeks. That was all it took, and Charlie Jr. was gone." Alice burst into the hospital, her breath ragged, her heart hammering in her chest. The moment her eyes landed on the frail, lifeless body of her son, her knees nearly buckled. His tiny frame was bruised, his skin stretched over his bones. The signs of neglect unmistakable. Malnourished, battered, broken. The boy was playful and fell down the stairs, Charles said, his voice cold, detached. Without thinking, her hand flew across his face with a resounding slap. "I begged you to give him to me, and now he's dead," she screamed. "In just 3 weeks, how could you?" "My pregnancy was sensitive," Monique chimed in, her hands rubbing her swollen belly. "Charlie was with me the whole time." At that moment, she didn't just want justice, she wanted blood. Wearing scrubs she had stolen from an unattended locker and gloves she had pulled on with steady hands, Alice stood over the cold, lifeless body of her son. She had no clearance to be here, but that didn't matter. Her hands trembled as she pulled back the white sheet. Charlie's small body was pale, his once warm skin now a canvas of horror's deep bruises, discolored flesh, and old wounds layered upon fresh ones. This wasn't an accident. This was murder. She swallowed hard, forcing herself to focus. "You're a forensic specialist, Alice. Do your job. Give him justice." She began her examination, repeated blunt force trauma, signs of asphyxiation, forceful feeding, an adult's grip, internal bleeding, liver damage, spleen trauma, broken ribs in different stages of healing, lung damage, subdural hematoma. She inhaled deeply, her chest shaking. Then she whispered, "Charlie, I know what happened to you. This wasn't just murder. It was slow, systematic torture. They didn't just kill him. They broke him." She carefully placed the sheet back over his body. She had all the proof she needed. This was long-term abuse, culminating in fatal head trauma. He was abused the first day he was in his father's custody. They stole her baby, and they thought they'd get away with it. A cold, deadly rage settled into Alice's bones. They had no idea what they had just unleashed. She wasn't a grieving mother anymore. She was a storm. A reckoning. A walking execution. The funeral home was dimly lit, the air heavy with the scent of white lilies and burning candles. Her eyes never left the small white coffin at the center of the room. Her son, Charlie Jr., lay inside that coffin, his little body cold, his laughter forever stolen. The people who took him from her were here. Laughing, drinking, flaunting. Charles stood in the middle of the room, shaking hands with colleagues, exchanging polite smiles. Beside him, Monique. Her parents were right beside her. They fussed over her, dabbed at her non-existent tears, and patted her hand in comfort as if she were the grieving mother instead of the murderer's mistress. Alice clenched her jaw. They thought she was broken. They thought she was defeated. They had no idea. Alice lifted her gaze and met Monique's eyes from across the room. Monique smirked. Alice smiled back. Monique didn't know it yet, but she was already dead. One phone beeped, then another, and another. Within seconds, the entire room was engulfed in hushed whispers, gasps of horror, and the frantic tapping of fingers against screens. On their screens, Charles and Monique were exposed. The affair, the abuse, the beatings. Then came the final clip. "Please, it hurts." A loud thud, a child's body going still. Monique's panicked breathing. Charles' voice, calm, eerily composed. "Clean this up, now." Alice sat perfectly still. She didn't have to raise her voice. She didn't have to point fingers. The evidence spoke for itself. Gasps of horror turned into rage. Karen Santiago's hand trembled as she stared at Monique. "Tell me this isn't real." But Monique couldn't speak. She couldn't move, because for the first time in her life, there was no escape, no parents to shield her, no lies to hide behind. The world saw her for what she was. A murderer. A monster. Alice finally stood. She walked past Charles, past Monique, past her so-called family. She paused at her son's coffin. She pressed a gentle kiss to the wood. "They'll pay. My love. Every single one of them."